Welcome to Campfire Wisdom. Grab a seat around the fire and tell us your story.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Campfire Wisdom. This is Greg. Yeah, it's nice to say hello. Nice to get back in touch. It's kind of like that time again where we get to sit down and chat a little bit. And I wanted to tell you a bit of a story. For those of you who know me, I like to tell stories. My younger brother Ross always jokes around with me, and he has this thing that he does. He's like, I like to tell stories. So he kind of makes fun of me. But in all seriousness, yeah, I fancy myself a storyteller. And I think in many ways I look at life as a story. And sometimes I don't remember things exactly as they happen, rather than the sweeping motions, I guess, yeah, not so much the details, but moreover the gist. I tend to forget the details and focus more on what actually happened and how it affected me. So, yeah. So, a long time ago, I obviously, grew up in Arizona, and I had this great trip with my dad, and I was probably 12 or 13 years old. Old enough, obviously, to, just essentially go on a really cool camping trip. And I'll tell you more about that trip. So I have an older brother, but my older brother's probably, I would say, and he would own up to this too, he's not so much the outdoor type. So I'm at this point where, I'm 13 years old, and my dad and his buddy Gib are going to go hunting. So Adam is Gib's son, and my good friend, we're the same age. We grew up together. We're still friends to this day. So we ended up going on a hunting trip with our dad. So this super epic time, right? Well, in Arizona, this particular animal, we were doing whitetail. We were hunting deer. And Adam and I were too young to obviously have our own weapons. So our dads had the guns, and we essentially were kind of their silent partners, carrying backpacks. We would have, food. We would basically be their little buddies going out. So I don't know exactly where it was. And I think location is not so much important as it is the fact that we went on a trip with our dad. It was an epic adventure, and we were outdoors, just kind of like living it up. So I remember a couple distinct things about that. So we were there. Obviously, we had campfires at night. We planned where we were going to go based on, the lay of the land. Adam went with his dad. I went with my dad, and we just kind of slowly but surely kind of trekked our way up and down these valleys. And if I remember right, it was southern Arizona. It was like maybe near Gardner Canyon, somewhere around south, like Sierra Vista or something like that. I could be totally wrong about that. Again, the location's not as important, but what was really cool is just like, it's like ingrained in my memory. Like, it's so distinct. This happened once in my entire life. Once. I remember it. I remember getting up early in the morning and trekking and hiking and all day, and like tracking deer, and just my dad and Gib working like different parts of it, going up and down and separating and then regrouping. But in particular, there was a time when we were chasing what we had seen some deer in the distance, and obviously working as in two groups, we were trying to get them to a point where one of us could have a shot. And again, like I was saying, Adam and I didn't have guns. We were just kind of support for our dads. My dad and I, stumbled across the deer, and it was a male and two females. The does, they seem, they're more intelligent animals than you give them credit for, but the does seem to be, protecting the buck. Like, my dad couldn't get a clear shot. Like, he took aim and there just wasn't a clear shot, and he didn't take it. And there's always like a part of me that thinks like, I wonder if my dad could have taken a shot and said, oh man, I can't kill this thing, or if he would legitimately, it's like, oh wow, I can't account for where this bullet's gonna go, I don't want to hit the doe. Yeah, so that moment is just like, it's in my brain. I can see it vividly, the buck and the two deer in front of him, and they're just going across this valley. And there was probably maybe a few seconds where he could have taken a shot if he felt like there was a good shot, but it wasn't there. So that trip is just emblazoned in my mind. And like I was saying earlier, it's the only hunting trip I've ever gone on. After that night, I remember coming back and we had like a campfire and we just shared stories. I remember that it was also the first time I ever had whiskey. My dad and Gib just had these little flasks that they were sipping on, and they got a little kick out of just letting us have a sip of it. And I remember thinking how disgusting it was. So the reason I tell you that story is I just finished my hunter education program from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So I am now officially a hunter. Well, I guess technically on paper. I have not obviously partaken in a hunt, but I have taken the steps to become a hunter. The first part of the course is all online, and that's at hunter-ed.com. Great videos, really well done. The production quality is amazing, and the information is fantastic and very conscientious about like the whole conservation, wildlife movement, everything. Check it out, hunter-ed.com. The second part involved a 4-hour follow-up course, and that was at the Apple Valley Gun Club. And damn, it was fun, but it was brutal. Watching old dudes try to work computers, oh my god, that part was torture. So there definitely needs to be an injection of some younger teachers. Hint, hint, for those young hunters out there, please, there needs to be some help. Second off, and kudos to the state of California, but there was a 100-question test at the end of the course. Like, I was thinking we would just show up and phone it in and, you get credit for participation, but no, this was legit. Like, you had to pay attention, and I was actually like, oh shit, I better pass this test. You had to get 80 or higher, so yeah, it was fun. So I ended up with a 95, proudly. I got an A, yay. So 30 years later, I'm actually thinking about picking up the tradition of hunting and like reincorporating that into my life. And I'll be honest, like, it sounds like a lot of fun. First off, it's outdoors. It involves kind of obviously using your survival skills, your tracking skills. There's always a level of excitement involved, especially if you're trying to, hunt an animal. And keep in mind, I've never killed an animal hunting, and it's not about that. I don't know, I can't explain it. I guess there's something to be said about like the tradition of it. And I know the tradition wasn't an absolute huge part of my life, but it left an impact, and I think it's something that I can understand why it is important to a lot of people. So when I'm in that training, so this is yesterday, there are about 15 people in there, and the instructor is obviously talking very in depth about hunter etiquette, hunter safety, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like sitting there, and I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, like this, it makes a lot of sense. Like I'm telling you, I'm conflicted because in my life right now, I'm not eating meat, right? So I know you're going to say, what the hell are you doing? You're crazy. So just for health reasons, and I'm not sure I'm a big fan of the whole meat industry and just all that kind of stuff, but in general, I just feel better on a more plant-based diet. So essentially, I'm calling myself a flexitarian. I have meat about once a month because I love me some ribs, so I can't give up ribs. But so I'm in this this very big dilemma in that I recognize the integrity and the power of the tradition of hunting, especially in the United States. I can see the value that would add to, like, me as an individual, just getting outdoors, finding time to do it with your friends, the sport of it. But there is also that conflict of like, okay, um, there's always like, oh my gosh, you're killing an animal, you're doing this, you're doing that, and again, so I'm totally saying that I'm wrestling with this. Okay, so it's pretty easy to distance yourself from your food when you buy it at a store, and I think that's part of the problem for me is I don't like the disconnection that I have with my food, and that's probably what led me to going more plant based. I want to be more connected to my food. I want to have an active part in the harvest of that animal, and very much in the way of the Native American, where they honor the animal that put food on their table. That's kind of where I'm at, and again, I don't even know if I'm gonna be a successful hunter. I don't even know if I'm gonna be a hunter. All I know is that I'm taking steps in that direction because I recognize the tradition, and I recognize it, as I'm stepping into the pathways of being a father. I want to obviously define myself in that sense. So I think in many ways you reflect on the experiences you had as a child, and that memory of going hunting with my dad is such a powerful memory, and it's such a sweet memory that I if I could provide that for my kids, whether it's my son or my daughter or whoever it is, if that's something that we decide to take on, great. And maybe it doesn't fit, but one thing I do know is it's definitely worth exploring, and it doesn't hurt to check things out and see if there's a fit. I gotta admit, like, there is a lot of probably negativity around the sport of hunting. And I was sitting in that room, and first off, everybody there is just very, yes sir, yes ma'am, like very polite to the teacher. And the gentleman, like I was telling you, was really hitting home the idea of hunter etiquette. And he's like, you know what? He's like, hunting is not a right, it's a privilege. And as a privilege, we need to make sure and respect other people's, views on hunting. So, and this is the guy who's a big hunter, he's saying, we're not all about the trophies, we're not all about this, we're about the tradition. And so he's talking about that, which is really ringing true for me. And it was nice to see, like, I will just say, like, the integrity of the hunter and what it means, and talking about conservation and talking about, the carrying capacity of the land versus predation versus starvation, all that stuff. And I think by now that I'm not trying to preach on the merits of hunting. I am, like I said, genuinely wrestling with the concept of it and kind of determining if it's a fit. I know spiritually it's a fit, in becoming more connected with the food I eat and having that a part of the whole circle. I know sometimes, in my, like, you dream about things, the concept of growing my own food and having a farm and all that kind of stuff really is powerful. And I think being a steward of the land also means that you would obviously probably in some cases have livestock, and having that respect for your animals at the same time as honoring what they would provide for you and your family. I think that's a relationship that's healthy. And I think if we can find a way to create more balance, I mean, maybe I am more pro hunting actually as I'm talking about it, because I think if we all did have a closer relationship with the food we ate, think about how many of us will eat meat every single day. Do you even know where it comes from? Do you even know, like, the whole process of how that came to be. If you're eating a burger, you're eating a steak, or eating chicken parmesan, whatever it might be, like, we're not connected to the actual animal itself that gave itself up so you could eat it. And I'm not the kind of guy who's going to be eating meat every single day, but maybe I'm the kind of guy that will have a few steaks in his freezer that from an animal that I was able to harvest myself, that I was able to, I guess, form a relationship with. And then when I am either eating it myself or sharing it or whatever happens from that bond that I have with it will speak volumes. And I'm going back to the story of it all. And the story of it all is that it's much more than just hunting. It's much more than tradition. It's a lot about that connection. And that seems to be what we're talking about, what I'm talking about, what I'm, I guess, in many ways obsessed about. Just that connection to everything we do, and just the choices we make and how they actually affect us. So, yeah, that's where I'm at today. I'm wrestling with this. I'd love to get you guys' input. If you have any insight on what we're talking about here today, I'm sure if there is a topic that is going to maybe, cause someone to go, what are you talking about? This might be it. Hunting tends to fire people up. So, again, I hope you are open to what I'm talking about. And like I said, not trying to preach, trying to share. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So send me an email, campfirewisdom@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Campfire Wisdom is brought to you from the hills of Rancho, Cucamonga. We'd like to thank the men and women that protect our national parks and forests. You make this journey possible. Theme music by Sean Cromwell.